to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
All right. Today, my guest is Jason Spears. Jason is the founder of Locust Cider and Brewing. Welcome. Thanks for showing up and tell us. Well, I don't want to just put you on the spot. Locust Cider. There's a story. There has to be. What's the story for the name?
All right, man. So we're going to start heavy.
Yeah, we're going in. We're going to
start
no warning.
All right. So I have like 5 different versions of the story at different lengths and depths of detail for the audience. So I'm going to just start, and I'm going to try to keep it from being dark, but it is a little dark, but it's positive. So when I was like 13 years old, 13 or 14, something like that. I always forget exactly. I grew up in Texas, Fort Worth, Texas. I should say, stepping back, when you name a company, a lot of people naming a company goes through all sorts of different processes. Some people hire a company to do it. Some people sit around a marketing table and talk about their target customer. So many different ways, but for me, at least when I started this company, this was something that I was excited about and passionate about. And I frankly didn't see it growing to where it is today necessarily. And I thought, I want it to be something that's personal and meaningful to me and has an anchor point for somewhere down the road, so I don't forget why I started the company. So I thought back to what meaningful moments were there in my life? What makes me who I am? What do I care about? And so I've always gone back to this moment in my life. I was 13 or 14 years old, growing up in Texas. It's the heat of the summer. School was out. It's like 100 degrees, 95% humidity. And my brother and I walked up to just whack golf balls around at the local middle school football field, back and forth. And as we're doing that, a few kids walk up, nobody we knew. Older teenagers, like 17, 18. And they walked up, took our golf clubs and walked away. It was like a 9-iron or something, a pitching wedge. Walk away. And then they stopped, and then they came walking back. And I told my brother, just let them do whatever they want to do. Something seems off. Came up, started acting strange. And the next thing I knew, I'm down on the ground, and a guy was beating me up with my golf club. 9-iron, nice, big, heavy end to it. And got down in the fetal position and covering my head up. So we are getting into the dark place here. And, sounds very trite, but I really remembered just going calm in my life, like all these memories flashing through my head, and I was pretty sure I was going to die. I was just hitting me over and over and over. And then all of a sudden it stopped, and I hear kind of out of the distance, like really far away, my little brother, I think he was 5 at the time, yelling, "Run." And I looked up, and the guy was standing there with a golf club in his hands, and it had broken. The shaft just snapped in half from him hitting me over the head with it. And so we took off, and we ran across the street and sat down at a neighbor's porch, and these 2 really beautiful, nice old women came out as I bled all over her front stoop. and called the police. And so we sat there waiting for the police and the ambulance to come. And as I don't know, I probably had ice on it or something, who knows? And at that moment, it's the calmest I've ever been. And I'm sitting there listening. This is where the name comes in. I'm sitting there feeling super, super calm and listening to, in the heat of the summer, the sound of the locust buzzing, which anyone who's lived in the South or the Midwest, really knows that sound. And just, it can be annoying, but it can also be calming and meditative, And so that's actually a good word, is sort of like a meditative state almost. I'm sitting there just feeling really calm and thinking, that guy almost killed me. How about that? And well, that's not going to happen again. I got to make the most out of my life, and I'm not going to accept crap anymore. And all these things, I started thinking like, man, this is my chance to do so many good things and so much, like fill my life with so much. And yeah, I was calm, and it was just wild. And so every time I think about anything meaningful to me, that one moment is like, that's huge to me. I mean, that was the motivation to that helped me get into college. I wrote an essay about it, like so many things that moment has done for me. And every time I think about it, the very first thing, we remember senses, right? We remember sound and smell and taste. And it's that sound that I always hear. And as soon as I think about it, I hear that sound of the buzzing. And so roundabout way, that's what got me to that name. And truth being, it's probably cicadas. I don't think I knew the difference between cicadas and locusts until I was older, but whatever. Locust is a little meaner looking too.
Well, I think we're all glad you picked locust versus cicada, because spelling it would be really a kind of a difficult one. But I had no idea that was the depth of the story, because on your website, you kind of make a reference to strength, perseverance, and calm. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
Did you ever find out what was the motivation for this?
Yeah, it was, so Fort Worth, I think still it's definitely a very class divided kind of place. And so it's just some kids from a super poor area that, were looking for money and drug related. And, I was a 13-year-old with like running shorts on. I didn't have any money, and they caught a guy. I remember the police coming into my school and doing a lineup with pictures and, getting called to the principal's office. It's pretty wild experience. But he truly the guy he was in an altered state, and I was dead, man. I was dead if that golf club hadn't have broken.
Wow.
Pretty crazy.
That's very deep.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's great that you've used that as an anchor for your business to keep you, it's an anchor in your life, and you've gone on, like you said, and you've made the best of it. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's also, entrepreneurship is hard, right? Especially right now. I mean, God, we have 15 locations that are mostly shut down because of COVID. And you ask any founder or entrepreneur, like, we're constantly worried about what could happen. And so we have to, it's good to have bad things in the past. So you can always remember it could be worse,
A frame of reference.
Yeah. What's the worst thing that could happen? Every risk I take financially or personally or physically, I always have to say, what's the worst that could happen? Right.
Right. So you started Locust in 2015. So you're coming up on your 6th year, if my math is correct. Awesome.
I think we'll be 6 in March or May or something like that.
And no one ever told you the roadmap didn't have a pandemic involved. That just was not part of the plan.
It's totally in the plan, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But why cider? What got you started? You grew up in Texas. You're here in Washington now.
Mm-hmm.
Why cider? What was the motivation? And
well, I'm lucky that I'm here in Washington, where we grow so many apples. I've been in Washington for a little over 10 years now. Well, let's see. When I started working on this, I had just really learned about cider. I developed an allergy to some beer related allergy. I think it's certain strains of hops. I get really sniffly and break out, and I can't breathe very well, but I love beer. I love wine. I love any, I like it all. But, okay. So I was at a restaurant with some friends, and one friend from, I think she's European. I don't remember exactly, but she had always had cider. She's always been a cider drinker, and she was drinking cider. And I was asking which beers have the lowest IBUs so that I can get a beer that doesn't make me sneeze. And I noticed she was drinking cider, and this is a long time ago, before Angry Orchard even. And I'm like, what's that? She's like, yeah, I have allergies. So I tried it, and wow, this is amazing. And I just became my thing. And unfortunately, when I get into something, it turns into some sort of business or.
Okay. Well, that's, yeah. Hey, I've had your ciders. I'm glad. Good. So you started in Woodinville,
mm-hmm.
and now you have how many tap rooms throughout Washington State at this time?
Yes, we have 11 in Washington.
Wow.
And then 4 in other states, one in Texas and 3 in Colorado, but mostly in Washington.
Okay.
And we do all our production here in Woodinville. I'm sitting in Woodinville. We make everything here, and it's we have a tap room here on site, and then all the other locations are just small tap rooms.
And how do I want to say this? So you do everything there in Woodinville. You can it, you keg it, you ferment it. You also have a brewery. Is the brewery on site in Woodinville as well?
It used to be, and now we keep growing out of our space. So at this point, we're bouncing around among other breweries in the area. There's so many breweries, and frankly, it works out great because during these times and even before the pandemic, there have been a lot of breweries have been challenged. So we're able to partner with other breweries and use their facilities and give them some added income, which is cool. Yeah, we still get to brew the beers that we want to brew. So
okay.
All our space here in Woodinville, though, we've just we've been growing out of it, and so we keep repurposing it for cider making and storage.
Okay. So how many gallons of cider are you making in any measurable period of time, I guess,
You know what? Everybody asks that question. It's a good question. It's not a bad question at all. And I don't track that. We track number of customers we have, and we track sales because sales matter, and other things like that. But I rarely look at that number. I would say it's in the range of a few 100,000 gallons a year.
Okay, that's a lot of cider.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot of cider.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So let me back up. So you found cider as a way of not having the allergy problems with beer, and you were working for other companies at that time. One little coffee company, no one's ever heard of before.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you get into making cider? Did you start making your own? Did you start? Okay, so you started.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was. You said I was working for some random little coffee company, and I don't even remember exactly when I decided it needed to be a business. But I think I as soon as I tasted it, I couldn't find what I liked on the market. It was right around the time that the industry was starting to grow in the U.S. And so maybe Angry Orchard was just being founded. Angry Orchard, it's a Sam Adams Boston beer company. And really, that brand really helped this market just boom. And then all the other local brands are now taking over the market. But at the time, you couldn't go to the store and find much, right? There weren't a whole lot of options. And I tasted a good, just like modern cider that first day and thought it was amazing. And I started trying to find what I could. And I ended up, I found like some French farmhouse ciders. Like my favorite cider is DuPont French farmhouse funky, like just really, really delicious cider. Couldn't find anything like that. So my mission was, how can I recreate that? And turns out I can't really.
Let me just pause you and ask you just directly, why can't you recreate that? It's you can, and there are some great cider brands in Washington actually that are doing really good traditional ciders with bittersweet apples and European varietals. But the access to that fruit is really difficult. It's really limited. And I didn't have an orchard in my backyard. I didn't have a family estate to build on. And I'm too impatient to say, I'm going to go write a plan to buy some land, establish an orchard, wait 5 or 10 years for it to really come into fruition, and then start doing R&D. Like I'm way too impatient for that. So I had to work with what I had, and what we have in Washington is a whole lot of eating apples, and the stuff in the French ciders that I was tasting and talking about are, hundreds of years old orchards with heirloom varieties and traditional cider varieties of apples that have flavors that we just can't develop out of the eating apples. So
So I started using fruit that we have access to and a lot of in Washington, which is Granny Smith and Gala and those apples, and trying to find creative ways to create those flavors. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't find those flavors, but we found our own, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. How long did it take you to get to find your voice in your cider making?
I mean, we still are. We still are. We do everything, right? So I would say that there have been maybe 3 or 4 different phases of that for me. But at the beginning, the first phase was, wow, this really is bad. I remember having some friends over for a little R&D session, like, hey guys, I'm thinking of making a business out of this. What do you think? And they all just sort of like, oh yeah, smiling.
Don't quit your day job.
This is great. It's great. And I think I knew it, and I had already signed a lease at that point. So I had to figure it out quick, right? So you just started learning and paying attention to asking around and reading and finding people who are good at it. And then, I think with a few new techniques quickly from that point, we turned the corner and figured out what cleaner cider and drier ciders was really where we started. And that was our voice to begin with. Then over time, we've evolved to where it can go so many places. So it's more about being creative at this point.
Yeah. When we went to your Walla Walla location, we had 2 flights. So we had a sample of everything you guys had on tap at that time, which, some of them are rotating. So your mileage may vary if you visit next month.
Yeah.
And they were, my wife and I went, and they were, unfortunately we were in a rush. So we didn't get to spend as much time as we would probably naturally spend. But we enjoyed them a lot. My wife, and I can't think of the name of it. I had a note written down and I can't find it, but you had one at the time that was your staff was saying it was, more wine-like. And I can't remember the name of it. To her, it reminded her of a Chardonnay. It had kind of an oak, and she really liked that one a lot. That was one that she was like, she's never had anything in the cider realm that was like that. So she really thought that was awesome. And I tend to like sweeter ciders. And so I like the vanilla bean one, which is pretty darn sweet, but that was
great,
pretty cool. Yeah, it's a great start. But then your staff brought over a couple of tasters of the frozen. That was I'm just glad it's wintertime, because in summertime I'd be in trouble. Those are amazing. Right.
You can't go wrong with a slushy.
So how'd you guys come up with the slushy idea?
Oh God. Good question. I don't know. My wife's from New Orleans, so maybe it comes from the hurricanes walking down the street.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. I could see a cross pollination there.
I'm not sure. I think customers probably asked for it. Honestly, I think one of our customers probably suggested it. And we said, "Well, we got to do that. That sounds delicious."
And in my very small sample size, I would concur.
I also remember. I was in Hong Kong. It was about 6 years ago. It was right early when we were working on this at the very beginning. I remember going to a horse race. So there's a horse track right in the middle of Hong Kong. And there was, oh my God, what a surreal experience, actually. This is so tangent, man. So I was at a horse race in Hong Kong. There was a French rap group performing, and they had frozen beer. And what? It was like 100 degrees. This is the strangest experience, man. But yeah, so I remember everybody was lined up for the frozen beer, and it was really good. It's really good. I didn't know you could do frozen beer. So I was watching horses race, listening to a French rap group, drinking some frozen beer in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So for the last 5 years, I always like to ask entrepreneurs this question. So I'm going to throw you under the bus here, but so cool. You've got a lot. How many varieties do you guys have on tap at any given time?
between 12 and 16 generally.
Okay. So you've got 12 to 16 different varieties of cider available to the public at any time, which is a nice selection. I think anyone's going to find something out of that many choices.
A lot of ciders.
You must have had this idea that said, hey, this will make a great cider. We'll combine this and it'll be awesome. And in your head, you're like going, this would be great. And and it backfired. Have there been any missteps?
So many. I'm trying to think, that's trying to think of the most interesting one, honestly. I'll turn it around a little bit. I'm not going to avoid the question because I love talking about the bad stuff. Some of the ones I thought were going to be the worst turned into the best too. Like I didn't
really,
our cider maker at the time developed the vanilla bean, and like, what? That's a ridiculous idea. Why would you do that? And it's freaking awesome. And our number one seller. And then,
okay.
Yeah, it's our number one. We do another one it's kind of a cult favorite that we're bringing back soon is smoked blueberries. So we smoke apples over applewood and mesquite and blend them up and then throw them in with some blueberry juice, and it's so good. But I thought it would taste like an ashtray. God, what has just failed? We did one. Some people loved it. So like I like Gozas a lot, Goza beers, and so we did A is the worst name ever that I came up with. I came up with this name. Not a very good cider. Some people love it, but we did a Goza inspired cider that's just a little salty and a little citrusy. And I think 2 people like it, and those 2 people, it's their favorite thing ever. But it was not good. I don't think it was very good. And I decided to name it brackish. Brackish water. You got a little salt and a little fresh, and it's like it's a horrible name. Horrible. So yeah, that's not a good one.
Okay. I always love hearing people's, we think this is going to be awesome. We're like, oh, we'll combine this and that, or we'll do this. And they just fall flat on their face. Because normally what I find I don't ask the question to like be embarrassing to people, but I have found that in many cases when we've tried something that we thought in our heads was going to be just like brilliant, and it doesn't work that way. But something in there's the kernel of something else though that comes out of it later that you're like, well, I don't know if I would have gotten here if I wouldn't have fallen on my face over here.
Right.
So that was
for sure. That's what we love about the way we do business, man, is that we've got all of these tap rooms and they're small, right? And so we can be intimate with our customers. And we can try anything, and it's okay if it fails. We can launch something new every week, and if it falls on its face, oh well, and there's always something to learn. So the bets aren't real big. We're not making these huge bets where the company's going to go under. We can just try stuff. It's awesome.
So if I came to you and I said I wanted to formulate a cider, and let's just say you said, okay, Scott, we'll do that. How long would it be before that cider would be available, and how small of batches do you make when you're prototyping something like that?
There's so many different ways to approach it. We have a few different ways. On the long end of the spectrum, and when we're talking about very variety specific, single varietals and blends of specific varieties, that takes a long time, obviously, right? We're sourcing the fruit, and we're fermenting the fruit, and we're and in many cases aging it, especially with the more tannic varieties, aging it for a few months. So if we're really looking at a more traditional cider, that take 3 months, 6 months, a year. But the fun stuff, the weird stuff, the vanilla beans, we most of our flavors, if it's fruit, we use all real ingredients. We don't use weird flavors, but we like to add them. We like to add them at the end of the process because the flavor carries through the most. We played with co-fermenting where you add, we're fermenting apples and cherries together, and it certainly changes the character of the beverage, but it doesn't. I find that the flavor just doesn't carry through as strongly. So realistically, you could come to me and say, you could give me an idea today, and maybe we could have something by the end of the week for you to try, and we run.
Wow, that's amazingly fast.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's so fun about it, right? And so we.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And we do batches. Our batch sizes range from the smallest batches we do are as little as like 100 gallons all the way up to, thousands. But
okay.
So we run really small batches, and we'll just make a few kegs and send them to a handful of our locations and see how they do.
That's fascinating. Okay. So we're gonna Locust your branding.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come across? How did you get your branding? Because it's very on point, I guess is an overused term.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And your tap rooms have like I said before we started recording, I think you guys have put a lot of attention to detail in at least in your Walla Walla tap room. And from the photographs I've seen of other ones, they look like they have attention to detail based on their space as well. But how did you come up with the look and feel of the brand?
Man, I am so bad at it. And I've always, there are points in time when I think I know what I'm doing, where I have, and realized I didn't. Frankly, we started, the branding was homegrown, and took for granted how hard it is to develop packaging and a cohesive brand. I mean, it's not easy. It's really hard. And it's not just a design exercise, there's so many pieces to it. So we started, frankly, not super, I was never real excited about where we were at the beginning, and nobody's fault. It's just, it's all my fault. I didn't have the right vision for what it should be. But over time, a brand, it's easy to say now, looking back, we probably wasted a lot of money in the process, but a brand sort of develops, and especially if you can give it the time, from the people in the company and the customers, right? Like if we said at the very beginning, this is our brand, and then let's all live up to that, it's maybe a little more difficult. So I like the idea that our brand sort of developed from who we are as people and who our customers are. And, if you look at it, I'll talk about the graphics and stuff in a sec if you want, but if, our customers, I like to think anyway that, our brand and who we are as people, and our staff and our people, we work hard, man. We work hard, and we're pretty humble and blue collar, maybe. We don't have pretensions, and we just come in and we work our butts off. And I think our branding kind of went to a place like that. Maybe we're also creative, and I hope it conveys a little bit of that. And I feel like we kind of attract that same customer. We're not pretending we're the absolute best, right? We're doing things that we love and we're passionate about. And we're doing it as best as we can. We're being super creative. And I think that's who our customers are. That's who we are. And so with kind of the branding ended up, and I didn't know necessarily that that's where it would go until we'd hired some people over time and built some personality organically. And I think so when we developed the branding as it is, it was when I was starting to feel like, this little picture of a bug doesn't really represent the company anymore, and it doesn't convey what I want it to convey in the grocery stores. It doesn't add to the feeling in our tap room. So I went, I'm really being windy with the story, so stop me if I'm taking it all over the place. But I went to first to a local artist who is a friend of mine. Actually, I raced bikes with him. At least I did when I didn't have kids in a business keeping me from racing bikes. And I'm going to plug him. I hope he doesn't mind. His name is Scott Musgrove. Check out his website. Amazing, fine artist. And so I hope he's not embarrassed to be associated with my silly little branding. But so
we'll also put a link in the show notes to his site then too, so he can't avoid it. How's that?
Yeah, he might hate me for this.
That's okay.
Definitely did not ask him in advance. But I went to him and said, man, we just need something new and something with life, and something with some emotion and passion behind it. And I think he whipped out in about 30 seconds, like these sketches that they all blew me away. And one of them ended up being this sort of skull and crossbones insect head, locust head. And that's where we went. We took that and ran with it. And like, man, this thing is so awesome. And so we went through all sorts of iterations of that and started incorporating it in different ways. And then when we opened, went on our packaging, it was kind of two-dimensional at the time, still super cool. But then when we opened our first tap room outside of Woodinville, so you asked a question about store design and how we make it cohesive and things like that. And really looked at the graphics as the main element and thought we need to bring some color into it. So it's another phase of the story. I went to my mom, who's an amazing designer and artist. Kate Hamilton is her name. And said, hey, let's make a cool mural out of this. And so just started adding all these other elements. And so when you look at like the big murals in our stores, and if you look at the cans, all the intricacies and the fruit and the other elements are all pieces that we added later. So my mom kind of created this really cool mural. And that still wasn't our packaging at the time either. That was just a big element in the store. But then we noticed, this is where who our customers are, right? Kind of drives the brand. We noticed everybody was like Instagramming in front of the mural, right? Like everybody was asking where it came from. Everybody was asking for shirts with it. And like, well, I think we need to use this art. I think we need to use this more. So,
yeah, if you have a brand that people want to wear, you've done something right. You've done something right.
Right.
But business isn't always dollars and cents. You picked Locust because of your event in your life, but you have a cause.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love for you to take the time and explain to our listeners Locust's cause and why it's important. And I'll turn it over to you.
I'd love to. I appreciate it. So let's see, March 2015 is when we started construction here in Woodinville on our original cidery. In February 2015 is when my daughter was born, Lucy. And she has an older brother, Elliot. Elliot's 9 now, and Lucy's 5, soon to be 6 in kindergarten.
Wow.
She was born with, so 1 month before we started construction, really bad timing for starting a business, really bad, but there's also not really a good time. So she was born with hydrocephalus, and we had inklings from the doctors that there might be something wrong before she was born, but we really learned about it after. Even at the time when she was born, they saw things in her brain and didn't put a name to it. And then one day the doctors put a name to it. When you name a health condition, it all of a sudden takes on a different life. It's odd, right? It's different to not feel well than it is to have cancer, right? So I learned she had hydrocephalus. Hydrocephalus is it's a brain condition. It's incurable. So there's no cure. And there really aren't very many good treatments. The only true treatment is a shunt device that's implanted in your brain. So what the condition is brain fluid. So we all have brain fluid, right? We all have brain fluid. But for these people, the fluid builds and never drains. Normally it recirculates through your body. People with hydrocephalus have brain fluid that doesn't drain and continues to build. And what it does is it builds pressure in your brain. And you can imagine if that continuously builds, then that creates pain. Their heads get bigger. And then on top of that, Lucy also had a skull condition in which normally when you're born, you have, imagine tectonic plates. Your skull is made of tectonic plates, right? So that it can grow as your body grows. Well, hers were fused together in the back. So on one hand, she has hydrocephalus and this pressure is building. And on the other hand, her skull can't grow with it. So the first couple months of her life, she was in pain. She was just crying and crying and crying. So it was hard when we learned about this. And I remember being at the hospital I think it was her first surgery. So her first surgery was her skull surgery. And then and then she had to have a shunt implanted. And the shunt is like a one-way valve that drains the brain fluid from your brain. And I'll talk about that in a sec. So I remember being at the hospital for her first surgery, and I saw a poster on the wall for the hydrocephalus walk. I'm like, oh man, my daughter has a named condition and they have a walk for it. Wow. That can't be good, but also it's great that there's a group of people I can look at and look to. So I dug them up, found out about, this community of people and learned more about the condition. And turns out that, 1 million people in the US have it. It's as prevalent as Down syndrome and, other conditions that we know about, that people talk about, but not a lot of people know about it. So right at that moment, I'm like, oh my God, if there's organization around this, then, and I'm just starting this company, then this is going to be part of my company. So that was an immediate, obvious and conscious decision, was we have to make this part of our company. So at that point I said, we're going to build into our pricing, a donation, right? So everything we sell, generates some piece of a donation to the Hydrocephalus Association. It's a national group that supports research on better treatments, supports making people's lives better. And a lot of it also funnels down to research specifically at Seattle Children's Hospital. Then we have a club, all our tap rooms have a cider club, and a big portion of the membership fee goes to that too. So it was something I had to build in right away. So Lucy's she's had 4 surgeries. She's 5 years old. Her first was a big skull surgery, and then she's had a surgery to implant the shunt in her brain. And she's had 2, her shunt has failed twice. So she's had 2 revision, they call it a revision surgery, to go in and repair it. And so repair or replace. And that's the problem. The problem with the condition is that the treatment, the shunt device, is really antiquated. It tends to fail a lot. And the average person with hydrocephalus has brain surgeries in the dozens throughout their life. And I know it's not uncommon. People have triple digit brain surgeries throughout their life. And every single one it's brain surgery. It's not a physical, it's a brain surgery. So it's scary and it's painful, but at the same time, a lot of people live really amazing, normal lives, and a lot of people don't as well. So
you referenced the Swarm Club. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why don't you expand on that for our audience?
Yeah,
because
it's awesome.
It sounds awesome. It is. Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's the best deal. It's the best deal this side of the Mississippi. So it's all really built around our tap rooms, right? So you pay an annual membership fee to be part of the club, and you're basically prepaying for like a pint or a flight every time you come in. Every time you come in, for you and a friend. So you get to try the new stuff. You get discounts on growlers, like big discounts, like half price growlers. The people that have it, a lot of people do it because they want to be part of the cause, because of $25 of the membership goes straight to the cause. And we funnel it straight through. So a lot of people join for that reason. A lot of people join because they want to be part of release parties and things like that we did before the pandemic. We will do again someday.
Are you going to maybe do a virtual one?
Yeah, we've tried. We've tried to do those things. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. We'll keep trying. Okay. Definitely keep trying. And they get first access to new flavors and stuff like that. And we have a private Facebook group, and we ask them for feedback. And, it's a cool community, actually. So a lot of people join for that reason, so they can be part of that sort of community. That's a big part of our company. And a lot of people just join because it's a really freaking good deal, and they pay for them. It pays for itself really fast. It's $200 or so. And if you're drinking, if you buy a growler every week, it pays for itself almost overnight.
So I've never growler, and then you guys also call something else a grunt.
It's like a half-size growler. Yeah.
Okay. So I still don't know how many ounces is in a growler. That's my question.
64 ounces. 64 ounces.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
64 ounces in a growler.
I should know that, but I don't. Okay.
That's okay. That means you're tempered in your alcohol.
There's
intake.
that.
You don't want to know too much, right?
Right. Exactly. So when you're not being dad, when you're not being a husband, when you're not running a business, in your copious free time, those hours every day that you have just to yourself, what do you do around Washington? Like if I said to you, hey, let's go grab lunch somewhere, and we can actually at this time go grab lunch somewhere.
Right.
Where's a good place to eat that people should know about that, they might not have heard of?
Oh man, you were going to put me on the spot with that one. Oh my gosh. That's a tough question. There's so many, there's so many. Spot for lunch. Can I pass on that and come back to that question? Sure. I'm going to think about it though.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Two reasons, because there are too many options, too many good choices. Well, some of them are gone now, which kind of stinks. And let's hope that a lot of them make it. But I also have too many friends in restaurants, and I want to pick the right one. I don't want to make somebody mad.
Okay. All right. Yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to make it that tough on you.
No, but
before we started recording, you mentioned virtual bike racing. I think when I think of that, I think of the Peloton, and then you're talking about this other device. But do you ever ride at Marymore at the track?
I love the velodrome. Yeah, I love it. That is they've got such a great, man, we're so lucky to have that here, right? Marymore Velodrome is such a unique addition, a unique thing to have in your community. I raced a couple years there. Like every year I'm training for it, and I never do it because I'm too busy. But we actually sponsor the velodrome. I don't know if you knew that or not. We sponsor the velodrome. Yeah. So when you can be in person, you can buy our cider at their beer garden. We donate it so that they can get part of their funding. The Marymore Velodrome is so cool, and they do a great job. They run it really well. They build a community of cyclists out there. They teach kids. I feel like that was a planted question, man, because here I am singing its praises, but they have a great program for kids. They teach kids about track racing and bike racing. A lot of passion with the people down there. Super cool. Super, super cool.
I've never ridden on a track, and I always thought, like, how did one, that's just not something you naturally do. Right. And you have to have it. You have to have a track. First off, it's not like you're going to go duplicate one in your backyard. Right. And second of all, it's like, well, how does one learn to ride on a track bike? That just seems crazy to me. Yeah, it's pretty wild, but it's man, not to get too nerdy on this, but track bike racing is like one of the original spectator sports, right? I mean, they were doing the race at Madison Square Garden back before people were going to watch NFL football games, and it's got such a long history. I'm not gonna, I am not knowledgeable enough to educate you right now, but I'll sound stupid if I try too hard, but people should research that sport. It's a really cool sport, man. It's a really cool sport. I had no idea that they were that, and not that I'm not a sports expert either, but I had no idea that it was done at Madison Square Garden and all that. That's pretty fascinating. Mm-hmm. Virtual bike racing, it has nothing to do with Washington State, but I do want to I just want to hear a little bit more about this. So what was the name of the device again? Zwift with a Z. Zwift. Yeah. I am so into it. I'm like, they should pay me because I'm so into it. I mean, especially right now, like all the virtual services are blowing up. Anything virtual is blowing up. But yeah, so you imagine a Peloton, but with your own bike, and you plug into a little trainer and it measures your power, and you go race virtually with thousands of people, and they're in Australia, and they're in London, and they're in China. It's crazy. They're all over the world, Argentina.
And
so are you watching a TV set when you do this?
It's on your computer. It's an app on your computer, and they have a virtual world with roads everywhere. And and you ride through the virtual worlds, and you can choose which direction you go. They have a number of different maps, and you can go uphill, you go downhill, and you're just riding in a world, and you see, it's a first person view as you're riding along, and you see other cyclists riding. And if you're behind them, the algorithms in the app know that you're drafting, and it's a little bit easier. And if you're not, then it gets a little harder. When you're going uphill, the resistance increases on your trainer, and it gets harder to ride. It's really cool. And I would say it's actually, I've been very lax about it lately because I'm kind of busy and stressed out by pandemic stuff, but which is more reason to exercise, right? But it's been really good honestly as a regional thing. I mean, we've got, I'm part of a racing team here in the Seattle area that, they're using that as their place to gather right now.
Oh, okay.
So they're still meeting and going for rides and talking to each other through whatever technology.
Virtual app.
Yeah, and they're and then like there's a bike race down in Ballard every year, the Ballard Criterium, and our team usually is a organizer of that, and I try to be a sponsor for a company, and that couldn't happen this year, so they ran it virtually, and there were prizes, and so it's a way to it's been a good platform for keeping some semblance of community going on a regional level, not just, not everything is completely virtual, right? So
one of the things that's been interesting while talking to people on this show, if you will, is that I hate to use the word pivot. I say that almost every episode, and I end up using it. But we've all reinvented ourselves, found ways of adapting, creative ways that you would have not thought of, a year ago. And not everything's been easy by any stretch of the imagination. Not everything's worked, but the resilience of people is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing to me. And it's fascinating to see, like you're describing this virtual bike world now, and how we're leveraging technology to, have that sense of community that we seem to be missing. And we can't sit down in your tap room and have a pint. We can do it virtually.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
So where can people, besides your tap rooms, you're in stores in Washington, where can people find your ciders?
Yeah, we're not all over, but we're pretty accessible, and especially I would say some of the awesome like regional stores like PCC, my favorite regional chain. PCC, Hagen is great, right? And then I guess Whole Foods is local now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Depending on how you look at it. PCC, Hagen, Whole Foods, some Safeways and QFCs and stuff here and there. Costco. So you can find us around. And obviously
you're in Costco.
We're Costco, yeah.
Small little retailer.
Small retailer, yeah. And if you want it, you go into a store, they don't have it, ask for it, please. It helps us. No, it's out there.
Absolutely.
It's out there. And hopefully all the bars and restaurants that can come back healthy will. And we can keep partnering with all of them too.
I might be throwing you under the bus, and if you don't want to, I'll delete this question. Todd, you may delete this. Just kidding. Can we put in a pitch for a tap room in Wenatchee? Selfishly?
Yeah. Maybe. Why not? I love it out there. Yeah.
I think if you guys were to put we're tongue planted firmly in cheek, but Pybus Market.
Oh yeah.
Having a tap room in Pybus would be
That'd be super cool.
Yeah, you should do that.
That'd be super cool. All right, let's do it. You're gonna run it though. You got to run it.
Oh well, no, you don't want to be anywhere near the public. No. My question, the legitimate question there is, are you going to continue growing tap rooms? Is that kind of the plan? If let's just snap my fingers and poof, we're back to quote unquote normal now.
Yeah.
Was your plan more tap rooms or?
So, to get a little businessy on it, we want to be pretty balanced. My goal is to be really balanced as a company. And I see a lot of beverage brands that come and go in, let's call it the grocery business, right? Like one of the classic examples in business is Ballast Point, and how they sold their company for $1 billion based on the premise that they were this huge brand that was going to make tons and tons of money forever. And consumers, people want new things, and people want to try new things, and brand loyalty is not the same as it used to be. So that was a really bad buy, even though it's a great company, it was a bad buy. Mm-hmm. So we're still a small company, and there's still risk involved. And so every time I'm putting my effort and money and my ability to, put food on my kids' table at risk, then I want to do something that I have some confidence in. And it's hard to have confidence that even if we keep making great stuff, that it's going to survive on the grocery shelves forever. And that, because people's tastes change, man. They change all the time. Sure. So we want to be balanced. And it's the same with the tap rooms. If it was all tap rooms, we would actually be in a lot more pain right now, And so
that's a good point.
So we like to have a nice balanced business, and it's cool that our customers can meet us and talk to us and see what we do. I mean, I sit here in Woodinville working, and when the tap room's not open, if a customer walks in, I'm fixing them a flight and sending them away with a growler. I mean, the cool, not that I'm special, but it's cool that I can be here and actually meet my customers, Right. And so they can meet us and see what we do, and then they can still go to the grocery store and buy it too. So our plan is to keep growing in this balanced, sort of relevant, and this way that feels good, So we're not just slamming cans down on grocery shelves and saying take it or leave it. So we want to do both, man. We want to do both, and we want to open more. I certainly don't want to be a Starbucks and have 50,000 in the same city, but we don't want to water it down so much that it's not special. We're not trying to have, we don't expect to have 100 tap rooms in Washington and be this huge ubiquitous brand. We only want them to be in places that have strong communities where we can actually be part of the community, and it's not about just trying to reach the whole market. So it's more about where we can be relevant, where we can be meaningful, and then just to kind of grow the business around all of that. So we'll definitely open more. Well, we want to open more. We hit a little speed bump, right now. We all have.
Right. So we're going to circle back. Well, actually, I have two final questions for you. One is lunch, because it's getting to be that time, man.
I know.
Your friends will understand. I'll tell you what. I'll give you a genre, and then you can blame me for it.
Yeah.
So, burgers. Where's a great place to grab a burger that you would?
Man, this is hard, man. This is hard. I mean, you can't go wrong with the Dick's Burger.
Oh, you cannot.
You can't go wrong with the Dick's Burger. There's a reason they're still around, man. So,
and they got the food truck now.
I know. Yeah, can't go wrong with Dick's.
I had them on the earlier episode, and she was great. And yeah, they're just
I know. Okay, you said truck. I'm going to stop you from asking my next question. The next genre. So I'm a barbecue guy. I grew up in Texas, right? I actually I was in the restaurant business back then. I had a barbecue restaurant for a while. So best barbecue is a truck, J&J. They come up here to Woodinville sometimes. They're all over. J&J's barbecue.
Okay.
Link up those guys, man. That is the real deal. The real deal. There's some good barbecue around. I'm not going to diss on anybody.
You're a Texas guy. You're a Texas guy. Are you saying?
That means brisket. That means beef.
Okay.
That means beef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have people up in Washington that are holding their own versus down in Texas.
These guys are. J&J are. Okay. Yeah, J&J are for sure. I'm
trying to think of that. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the name of that? We're not staying very true to Washington today, are we? But there's a barbecue place in, I think it's Austin.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many.
Well, and they just started their own line of barbecue. I want to say Franklin is the name of it. But it's like an 8-hour line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if I can envision waiting in line 8 hours for food.
Yeah, Franklin's one. Yeah, not me. No.
Okay. All right.
I mean, you know, so here's the thing: like, you can't go wrong with some smoked meat. You can't really make it. It can't be too bad. But
you really have to work hard to mess it up.
Yeah, but there can also be I don't know that it can be. It can be really good. But I don't know that anything's worth waiting in line for 4 hours. I don't know.
Yeah, they're pretty crazy. All right, so the other thing I want to put you on the spot for: what of your ciders? What is your personal favorite?
I have two. So I drink the original dry all the time because it's the first one we made. It's really clean. And then my second favorite is this isn't a commercial. It doesn't happen. It just so happens we're about to release it. But
okay,
it's just a coincidence, I promise. New England Amber. So that's an effort to develop a more traditional cider using modern apples or using eating apples. So it's got some caramelized flavors like brown sugary, and we use dates. We steep dates in it, so it gives it sort of a really rich and caramelized flavor to it. Adds some mouthfeel and body. It's really a New England Amber, not too sweet.
And when's that going to come out? Because that actually sounds something like I might really like.
Yeah, we just canned it. I think it's a club member only release on Friday. This Friday, and then it's
so this episode will be after that. So
yeah. So whenever that was, so it'll be out. And we do small batch programs, so we release like once a month or so a new small batch in cans. So we only do, I think we did maybe like 500 cases, so it's not a lot. So it'll get out there.
So is it going to be on tap in the tap rooms?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it'll be on tap in the tap rooms. So it means I need to go down to one of the tap rooms, and your tap rooms are open right now for takeout, correct?
They're open for takeout. We have where we can. We have outdoor seating. Woodinville's got some makeshift tents and heaters, and they don't all have patios. It's also pretty cold out, so
yes.
But they are all open for takeout.
Okay. So I'll give you the final word. Is leave our audience with something on the way out.
Oh man. Talk about putting me on the spot.
Come on.
I just we're talking about Washington, so I got to say something about Washington. I mean, the state is freaking awesome, man. When I was in college, I visited Seattle. I was in Colorado, visited Seattle, and I remember I was 20 years old. I said, man, I'm going to live here. I got to live here someday. Seattle is awesome. Okay. And then I met my now wife when I was 29, and a few months later took her on a secret surprise trip to Seattle, and we hung out, went down, and were tourists down on the waterfront and ate at crab place and crab pot, and we sat there and we said, man, we got to live in Seattle. And then, roundabout way, Starbucks hired me one day and ended up bringing me out here, and now we're in Seattle, and I love it. And I guess if I need to leave a final word, this is hard right now, man. Things are. No, I mean, I
don't mean to laugh at you.
No. The world is hard. This is hard. Seattle's going through some times, dude. This is crazy. I mean, none of us have ever seen this, but the city's too great to give up on. Like, I want to see, I think I'm seeing it, but I want to see everybody care about making this work. We all need to, we gotta start putting our money where our mouth is and get out in the streets and shop at local stores, shop at local restaurants, man. Do your takeout. fix the broken window. We got to work together to make this place great. 'Cause I wanted to live in this place because it's great. And it's sad seeing what's been happening through the pandemic, but we gotta make this great, man. So support your local restaurants, go clean up what you see dirty. Everybody needs to start being citizens, and let's do it together.
Well, I think that's an excellent way to end this episode. Thank you so much for being on. It was a lot of fun, and I wish you guys nothing but the most success you can possibly have.
Thank you. This is awesome. It's fun. Thanks.
All right.
Okay.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.